Time I've been doing reviews, we've talked about a lot of different types of bad movies. I mean, the first kind you have is like what Marvel just keeps crapping out, which is movies that are just so boring, uninteresting, uninspired, and phoned in that they're basically unwatchable. Then you have DC movies, which are fascinating because they did absolutely everything wrong they possibly could have done wrong, but it's such an epic failure. It's actually a lot more interesting to watch. Then you have things like Slender Man or Netflix original movies that aren't even really movies. They just are like nothing. I don't even know how to describe. I don't even know how I'd review those pieces of shit. It feels like something somebody shot in high school, but rather than being like 15 to 20 minutes long, it's like 2 hours long and had some semblance of a budget. And that's what a Netflix movie is. This one's really bad, but it's bad in kind of a way that takes a lot of different types of badness together and does that without taking any of the saving graces of any of them. Like, as I said, DC movies are fascinating. Like, the hardest I laughed in my life was when I was watching Suicide Squad, and there's that scene where they're sitting in a bar. Like, they just randomly start sitting in a bar, like the whole movie stops, and they start telling these really lame stories, and it's supposed to be an emotional moment. And it was just so out of place. I laughed until I literally just started crying. Aquaman was fascinating. But, so, like, I'd watch Justice League again. Marvel movies are bad, but at least they have decent production value. So maybe you can look at something in the movie and be like, oh, that's a cool special effect. This movie somehow managed to not have any of that. To just be terrible. And it wasn't even like the kind of abrasive terribleness like Miami Vice or Kick-Ass 2 or The Last Jedi that like makes you angry. This movie was bad in a way that made me feel nothing. So I'm talking, of course, if you've seen the title, about Captive State. Now, this was supposed to be a metaphor for something. I don't know what it's supposed to be a metaphor for. My guess is it's some left-wing nonsense. And regardless of how you feel, like you're conservative, you're liberal, you're socialist, you're fascist, whatever, I don't get this whole idea that like the political left are underdogs. They control the media, they control online. My side can't shut websites down and kick people off of social media for disagreeing with us. So if we're gonna like say that this is a metaphor for the Trump presidency or something, Trump has no power. Look at how many people have resigned or thrown him under the bus or tried to screw him over. He has absolutely no power. So this is supposed to be about Trump. I don't really know. If this was supposed to be about illegal immigration, then the aliens were the illegal immigrants who came in and took everything over. So I don't really get... If anything, this movie kind of makes my point and my side's point a lot better than it makes any kind of left-wing point. So, okay, let's just try to like take a step back, because it's going to be hard to explain this nonsense. So basically, these aliens came, and the aliens are called the Legislators, which is probably the worst name for an alien group I've ever seen. And so the aliens came, and like all aliens, they set up a puppet government, and they're using the puppet government to extract resources. So it's kind of like a cross between XCOM 2 and Homefront: The Revolution. You're thinking, Argent, that doesn't sound like that bad. I mean, Homefront 2 was pretty lame, but it wasn't that bad as like an action game. And XCOM 2 was really good, so like maybe there's some potential here. No, literally half of this movie is just like people passing things between each other. I'm trying to think of how to even like describe it. Like there's like the resistance cell, and half the movie is literally them just passing messages between each other and like fooling scanners and stuff like that, and hacking stuff, and like there's no story. It's just stuff happening. It's just shit happening. Okay, but I'm getting off topic. I just spoiled half the movie. So these aliens come, they're the legislators, so they've put bugs in everybody, and the bugs like can track people, and they can also use the bugs to listen in. And the main character, his brother was part of a terrorist group who were trying to overthrow the legislators. The legislators have built compounds in the middle of every major city. Yeah, so the legislators have taken over all of the world's governments and are ruling them by proxy. They've set up fortresses in the middle of every major city, and they've withdrawn there, and they send out their puppets and their goons to go and run society and to crush any opposition to them. Does this sound familiar at all? I think either the guy who made this was like really edgy or just had no idea what this kind of looked like. But anyway, so the aliens are doing that, and our story takes place in Chicago. So the main character's brother, like I said, was part of some resistance movement, and he apparently died off screen. And then we get the guy, and the guy's running cigarettes. There's like a 20-minute part of this movie where he gets a cigarette and he has to run the cigarette. And I was like, what the hell is this? Is there going to be like plastic explosive in the cigarette? And it turned out that on the cigarette there was like the code written, which was the code was the ID number of the deputy mayor of Chicago, because the deputy mayor of Chicago was going to meet the legislators. So there's like an hour-long section of the movie where like they get this bomb on the deputy mayor, so then he blows up and he kills a couple of them, but it doesn't really do anything. They send in hunters then, kind of like the hunters in Halo. Then they kill a couple people, and we have a couple resistance cell members taking cyanide. And I know this sounds incoherent, but this is literally me describing the movie and the plot, if you can call it that, as it happens. So I don't even know how to like describe this one. So yeah, so they blow it up. So then his brother gets taken captive, and then the main character, he had some plan, I think, to escape across the lake, and they're like, no, we're gonna kill your brother unless you be a snitch for us. So he of course agrees to be a snitch. So he leads John Goodman, who's like the chief inspector, back to this prostitute who is number one. She's the head of the resistance. And then they find all the records of all the other resistance members. And it's like, at this point, you're like, there's not much time in the movie left. Like, where is this going? Like, okay, so we had the plot of them trying to blow this thing up. We had the plot of him turning into a rat. We had all these other unresolved plot threads that just kept plumbing up. Like, it feels like, are they setting this up for a sequel? Like, what's going on? So then the twist happens, which I actually saw coming, like, very, very early in the movie. So it turns out that John Goodman actually isn't the main villain. He was a double agent, because there's this Trojan horse symbolism. So the whole thing was a setup to get the current commissioner removed from power, and then John Goodman became commissioner. And once John Goodman became commissioner, he was able to get into the restricted zone, and they put a bomb on him. And then the movie ends with him going into the restricted zone, and it doesn't show the restricted zone, and it doesn't show the bomb going off, because I guess they ran out of money. So it's like, was that supposed to be the end of the story? Is this sequel baiting? Like what is going on? You know what it was like? This really reminds me of Halo in several ways. It was like the finish the fight thing. Nah, because that was actually more of a conclusive ending. So then the credits, it's like, oh, there was people rose up all over the planet. Gamers rose up. Gamers rose up because we live in a society run by aliens. So, like, off-screen, the bomb goes off-screen, the world gets freed or something. We had this shitty, like, 2.5 hour, I don't know if it was 2.5 hours, it felt like it was 2.5 hour long movie where none of this happens, and it's shown, like, off-screen in the last, like, 30 seconds. And, like, I don't even know how to describe it, this movie was that bad. And it wasn't even, like, abrasively bad. It wasn't even boringly bad. It's a complete, like, failed to make any kind of human, like, impression on me. It was somehow bad in a way that, like, escapes description. It was lame, it was boring, it was incoherent. It just felt like a bunch of, like, random other movies they edited together. They just forgot, like parts of the plot. Like, the main character's girlfriend just disappeared and she was never mentioned again. Like, just his brother was never mentioned again. There's a lot of stuff in this movie that just never got mentioned again. And it didn't end, it just stopped. Like, my guess, and this is me being generous, is they just ran out of money for the last scene. Like, the cool scene of the alien, like, planet, because that's what I was holding out hope for. I was like, okay, it's been building up, let's see what the alien, like, restricted zone is. This could be cool. This could be what the big reveal. And they didn't even show that. So my hope is that they ran out of money for that in the explosion. And that's the reason it wasn't in the movie. But I think it's just because the guy who made this film was a fucking hack. And everybody involved with this should be ashamed. And I mainly saw this movie because there's nothing else on. And because John Goodman's in it and because I like John Goodman. And the fucking movie theaters taunted me. Because all week they've had posters for Us up. Us, that, like, really, really scary horror movie that looks amazing. They had posters up for that, and then I'm like, oh, is it coming out? And like, no, but you're getting Captive fucking State. So I couldn't go see Us, so I went to see Captive State. This is what I had to put up with. So I don't know. Us is getting really good reviews, though. I know I said, like, there was no way Glass could be bad, and Glass was an abortion of a movie. But maybe I can't see Us being bad. I mean, they got good reviews too. How often does a horror movie get good reviews? I think A Quiet Place got good reviews. A Quiet Place was like a 10 out of 10 movie. Us just looks, I don't want to say there's no chance it could be bad, because I said that with Glass and it was horrible. And I ignored what the critics said on that one. But it can't be worse than Captive State. You know what Captive State is? You know that clickbait review DSP did? The worst game I ever played? If there was a movie based on that review, it would be this movie. And it's not even like the worst movie I've ever seen. It just made no impression on me whatsoever. I couldn't even fucking explain it. That's how bad this movie was. So that was, I don't know. I guess it just life sucks sometimes, man. Life sucks sometimes. But I got some popcorn, so it's all good. Anyways, guys, have a good weekend. And don't go watch fucking Captive State. Go see Us when it comes out. Don't go see Captive State.